mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, "Let thy light be in me like a fire that makes all alive. Let thy divine love penetrate me. I aspire with all my being for thy reign as sovereign and master of my mind and heart and body. Let them be thy docile instruments and thy faithful servitors. With always our love and blessings is our Divine Mother." Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 2, Canto 14, The World Soul. In a far shimmering background of mind space, a glowing mouth was seen, a luminous shaft. A recluse gate it seemed, musing on joy, a veiled retreat, an escape to mystery. As if a message from the world's deep soul, an intimation of lurking joy that flowed out from a cup of brooding bliss, there shimmered stealing out into the mind a mute and quivering ecstasy of light, a passion and delicacy of roseate fire. Darshan Day Messages of 1935. Our Divine Mother says, "We surrender to Thee this evening all that is artificial and false, all that pretends and imitates. Let it disappear with the year that is at the end. Let it disappear with the year that is at an end. May only what is perfectly true, sincere, straight, and pure subsist in the year that is beginning." of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo book, Supramental Manifestation. Topic: Supermind and the Life Divine. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, a divine life upon earth, the ideal we have placed before us, can only come about by a spiritual change of our being and a radical and fundamental change, an evolution or revolution of our nature. The embodied being upon earth would have to rise out of the domination over it of its wheels of mind, life, and body into the full consciousness and possession of its spiritual reality, and its nature also would have to be lifted out of the consciousness and power of consciousness proper to a mental, vital, and physical being into the greater consciousness and greater power of being and the larger, freer life of the spirit. It would not lose these former wheels, but they would no longer be wheels or imperfect expressions, but true manifestations. They would be changed into states of light, powers of spiritual life, vehicles of a spiritual existence. But this again could not be if mind, life, and body were not taken up and transformed by a state of being and a force of being superior to them, a power of supermind as much above our incomplete mental nature as that is above the nature of animal life and animated matter, as it is immeasurably above the mere material nature. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo continues to explain, the supermind is, in its very essence, a truth consciousness, a consciousness always free from the ignorance which is the foundation of our present natural or evolutionary existence, and from which nature in us is trying to arrive at self-knowledge and world knowledge and the right consciousness and the right use of our existence in the universe. The supermind, because it is a truth consciousness, has this knowledge inherent in it and this power of true existence. Its course is straight and can go direct to its aim. Its field is wide and can be made illimitable. This is because its very nature is knowledge. It has not to acquire knowledge but possess it in its own right. Its steps are not from the nescience or ignorance into some imperfect light, but from truth to a greater truth, from right perception to a deeper perception, from intuition to intuition, from illumination to utter boundless luminousness, from growing wideness to the utter vast and to be very infinitude. On its summit, it possesses the divine omniscience and omnipotence, but even in an evolutionary moment of its own gradated self-manifestation, by which it would eventually reveal its own highest heights, it might be in its very nature essentially free from ignorance and error. It starts from truth and light and moves always in truth and light. As its knowledge is always true, so too is its will that's always true. It does not fumble in its handling of things or stumble in its spaces. In the supermind, feeling and emotion does not depart from their truth. Make no slips or mistakes. Do not swear from the right and the real. cannot misuse beauty and delight or twist away from a divine rectitude. In the supermind, sense cannot mislead or deviate into the grossnesses which are here its natural imperfections and the cause of reproach, distrust, and misuse by our ignorance. Even an incomplete statement made by the supermind is a truth leading to a further truth, its incomplete action a step towards completeness. All the life and action and leading of the supermind is guarded in its very nature from the falsehood and uncertainties that are our Lord. It moves in safety towards its perfection. Once the truth consciousness was established here on its own soul foundation, the evolution of divine life would be a progress in felicity, a march through light to Ananda. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo continues to say, Supermind is an eternal reality of the divine being and the divine nature. In its own plane, it already and always exists and possesses its own essential law of being. It has not to be created or to emerge or evolve into existence out of involution in matter or out of non existence, as it might seem to the view of the mind, which itself seems to its own view to have so emerged from life and matter, or to have evolved out of an involution in life and matter. The nature of supermind is always the same, a being of knowledge, proceeding from truth to truth, creating or rather manifesting what has to be manifested by the power of a pre-existent knowledge, not by hazard but by a self-existent destiny in the being itself, a necessity of the thing in itself and therefore inevitable. Its manifestation of the divine life will also be inevitable. Its own life on its own plane is divine, and if supermind descends upon the earth, it will bring necessarily the divine life with it and establish it here. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, Supermind is the grade of existence beyond mind, life, and matter. And as mind, life, and matter have manifested on the earth, so too must supermind in the inevitable course of things manifest in this world of matter. In fact, a supermind is already here, but it is involved, concealed behind this manifest mind, life, and matter, and not yet acting overtly or in its own power. If it acts, it is through these inferior powers and modified by these characters, and so not yet recognizable. It is only by the approach and arrival of the descending supermind that it can be liberated upon earth and reveal itself in the action of our material, vital, and mental parts, so that these lower powers can become portions of a total divinized activity of our whole being. It is that will bring to us a completely realized divinity or the divine life. It is indeed so that life and mind involved in matter have realized themselves here. For only what is involved can evolve, otherwise there could be no emergence. The manifestation of a supramental truth consciousness is therefore the capital reality that will make the divine life possible. It is when all moments of thought, impulse, and action are governed and directed by a self existent and luminously automatic truth consciousness, and our whole nature comes to be constituted by it and made of its stuff, that the life divine will be complete and absolute, even as it is in reality, though not in the appearance of things. It is a secret, self existent knowledge and truth that is working to manifest itself in the creation here. The divine is already there, immanent with us. Ourselves are that in our inmost reality, and it is this reality that we have to manifest. It is that which constitutes the urge towards the divine living and makes necessary the creation of the life divine even in this material existence. And Lord Sri Aurobindo continues to say, a manifestation of the supermind and its true consciousness is then inevitable. It must happen in this world sooner or later. But it has two aspects, a descent from above and ascent from below, a self-revelation of the spirit and evolution in nature. The ascent is necessarily an effort, a working of nature, an urge or nisus on her side to raise her lower parts by an evolutionary or revolutionary change, conversion or transformation into the divine reality, and it may happen by a process and progress or by a rapid miracle. The descent or self-revelation of the spirit is an act of the supreme reality from above which makes the realization possible. And it can appear either as the divine aid which brings about the fulfillment of the progress and process, or as the sanction of the miracle. Evolution, as we see it in this world, is a slow and difficult process, and indeed needs usually ages to reach abiding results. But this is because it is in its nature an emergence from inconscient beings, a start from the science, and a working in the ignorance of natural beings by what seems to be an unconscious force. Our Lord says, there can be, on the contrary, an evolution in the light and no longer in the darkness, in which the evolving being is a conscious participant and cooperator, and this is precisely what must take place here. Even in the effort and progress from ignorance to knowledge, this must be in part, if not wholly, the endeavor to be made on the heights of the nature, and it must be wholly that in the final moment towards the spiritual change, realization, transformation. It must still be more so when there is a transition across the dividing line between the ignorance and the knowledge, and the evolution is from knowledge to a greater knowledge, from consciousness to a greater consciousness, from being to greater being. There is then no longer any necessity for the slow pace of the ordinary evolution. There can be rapid conversion, quick transformation after transformation, what would seem to our normal present mind a succession of miracles. An evolution on the supramental levels would well be. An evolution on the supramental levels could be of that nature. It could be equally, if the being so choose, a more leisurely passage of one supramental state or condition of things to something beyond, but still supramental from level to divine level, a building of divine gradations, a free growth to the supreme supermind, or beyond it to yet undreamed levels of being, consciousness and ananda. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo explains the supramental knowledge, the truth consciousness of the supermind, is in itself one and total. Even when there is a voluntary limitation of the knowledge, or what might seem to be a partial manifestation, it is so voluntarily the limitation does not proceed from or result in any kind of ignorance. It is not a denial or withholding of knowledge, for all the rest of the truth that is not brought into expression is implicit here. Above all, there are no contradictions. Whatever would seem to be opposite to the mind here carry in themselves their own right relation and reconciling agreement. If indeed any reconciliation were needed, for the harmony of these apparent opposites is complete. The mind tends to put the personal and impersonal in face of each other as if they were two contraries, but the supermind sees and realizes them as, at the lowest, complements and mutually fulfilling powers of the single reality, and more characteristically as interfused and inseparable, and themselves that single reality. The person has his aspect of impersonality inseparable from himself, without which he could not be what he is or could not be with his whole self. The impersonal is, in its truth, not a state of existence, a state of consciousness and a state of bliss, but a being self-existent, conscious of self, full of his self-existent bliss, the bliss, the very substance of his being. So, the one single and illimitable person, Purusha. In the supermind, the finite does not cut up or limit the infinite, does not feel itself contrary to the infinite, but rather it feels its own infinity. The relative and temporal is not a contradiction of eternity, but a right relation of its aspects, a native, working, or imperishable feature of the eternal. Time, there is only the eternal in existence. Time, there is only the eternal in extension, and the eternal can be felt in the momentary. Thus, the integral divine is there in the supermind, and no theory of illusion or self-contradictory Maya may be thirst or need be thirst in to justify its way of existence. It will be obvious that an escape from life is not necessarily for the divine to find itself or its reality. It possesses that always, whether in cosmic life or in its transcendent existence. The divine life cannot be a contradiction of the divine or of the supreme reality. It is part of that reality, an aspect or expression of it. It can be nothing else. In life, on the supramental plane, all the divine is possessed. When the supermind descends on earth, it must bring the divine with it and make that full possession possible here. Our Lord continues to say, the divine life will give to those who enter into it and possess it, an increasing and finally a complete possession of the truth consciousness and all that it carries in it. It will bring with it the realization of the divine in self and the divine in nature. All that is sought by the God seeker will be fulfilled in his spirit and in his life as he moves towards spiritual perfection. He will become aware of the transcendent reality, possess in the self-experience the supreme existence, consciousness, bliss, be one with Sachidananda. He will become one with cosmic being and universal nature. He will contain the world in himself, in his own cosmic consciousness, and feel himself one with all beings, he will see himself in all and all in himself, become united and identified with the self which has become all existences. He will perceive the beauty of the all beautiful, the miracle of the all wonderful. He will enter in the end into the bliss of the Brahman and live abidingly in it. And for all this, he will not need to shun existence or plunge into the annihilation of the spiritual person in some self-extinguishing nirvana. As in the self, so in nature, he can realize the divine. The nature of the divine light is power and bliss. He can feel the divine light and power and bliss above him and descending into him, filling every strand of his nature, every cell and atom of his being, flooding his soul, mind, and life and body, surrounding him like an illimitable sea, and filling the world, suffusing all his feeling and sense and experience, making all his life truly and utterly divine. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, this and all else that the spiritual consciousness can bring to him, the divine life, will give him when it reaches its utmost completeness and perfection, and the supramental truth consciousness is fulfilled in all himself. But even before that, he can attain to something of it all, grow in it, live in it, once the supermind has descended upon him and has the direction of his existence. All relations with the divine will be his, the trinity of God knowledge, the divine works, devotion to God will open within him and move towards an utter self-giving and surrender of his whole being and nature. He will live in God and with God, possess God as it is said, even plunge in him, forgetting all separate personality but not losing it in self-extinction. The love of God and all the sweetness of love will remain his. The bliss of contact as well as the bliss of oneness, the bliss of difference in oneness. All the infinite ranges of experience of the infinite will be his, and the joy of the finite in the embrace of the infinite. To be continued.
त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्नामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मां नवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः